Welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means. The other three are just along for the ride. They are not picking the nose for the record. Tyler, say hi.
Hey, hey.
And we are joined by some friends of the pod. K Dub, say what's up.
How's it going, guys?
And Patrick Lyons, live from Arizona. How you doing?
Good. Glad to have you. Glad to be here and glad for you guys to have me. It's fun.
Yeah, you're gonna have to turn off that host hat and come as a guest hat. Glad you're here. It's been a time coming. I do want to start off with you, Patrick, real quick. I don't know if you want to silence the haters, but the DNVR Rockies account told you to get a life. How would you like to respond to that?
Well, I'll just say this. There are several people who run that account. And if there is a, potential Kaiser Sose theory out there that perhaps I was the one who said that to myself, I couldn't really deny it because, again, a lot of people run the DNVR Rockies account. So if I'm going out there talking about players who have more triples than stolen bases, and that's how I want to use some of my free time while I'm in Arizona, I could understand somebody making a comment about that, whether it's me or somebody else that runs the DNVR Rockies account.
I like how you silence the haters, but I'm gonna put my money was on Susie that said it. Let's talk minors. Let's talk minors. Hilarious. We are here. We're gonna be a road to Blake Street. I should have said that at the front. We got the experts all across the board. I'm just acting like one. And let's just start off with the best alternative logo. So there's some fire that was dropped. I'm gonna go first, so you guys can't steal it. I put it on the rundown, so it won't be a surprise. But the Hartford Yard Goats are going to be the bouncy pickles for one night this season. And this story is absolutely hilarious. So Tyler and I were talking before we got started. Like he had no idea. So there was a law in 1948 that there had to be a certain threshold for a pickle to be a pickle. So pickle packers Sidney Spare and Moses Dexler for selling pickles unfit for human consumption. So the rule was take it to a lab and test it, or simply drop it 1 foot off the ground and it should bounce. If it bounces, it's a pickle. If not, you're going to be arrested and pay a $500 fine. So that is Connecticut law. The Hartford Yard Goats and their team went to the deep dive archives and found the bouncing pickles. And if you have not seen their hat, it is fire. You got a pickle on a pogo stick. Colors are sweet. I had it in my cart a few times. I just couldn't pull the button. But it is a fun one. And I know I'm wearing the tacos hat as we speak, but the bouncing pickles is my one night, one only alternative logo. Absolutely love that story.
And that is your reason to tune in, or that history lesson right there. Wow.
It's fun, right?
The
Told you
history
you'd be
of
surprised.
pickles.
Yeah. And then
I dig it.
the Fresno Grizzlies are also doing a pickle palooza night sometime in mid-May. Did not see much information about that, but they're doing Tequila Fest, Taco Fest, so I'm sure it's going to be big and bad, especially with Johnny Bravo running that show. So pickle palooza in Fresno also. Tyler, best alternative
So,
logo.
I gotta stay true to my roots. Albuquerque green chili cheeseburgers. It's one of the most ridiculous. I actually at this point the minor league whole alternate stuff is very ridiculous in the best kind of way. But if you are someone, I don't have the deep story behind it. I mean, you go to Albuquerque and there's green chili everywhere. And if you, especially if you're living in Denver and you have not had a green chili cheeseburger, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Out in Michigan, I could understand if that hasn't reached the Midwest yet, but if you're in Denver, you have not had one, you have to.
I've definitely dabbled with making it on my own a little bit. I like to think of
Good.
myself as a hamburger cheeseburger connoisseur, so I like to dabble on my own. It was good. I think I need to feel it authentically down in Albuquerque one time before I really pass full-time judgment on that. But
It's
I love that
special.
logo. The logo's sweet.
Yeah, no,
I
and
like
that too.
Yeah. K-Dub, what you got, dog?
I'm going to admit right off the bat that I definitely misunderstood the assignment here a little bit because I was going to go with the Rochester Red Wings, and instead of their normal logo, they have like an R with a feather coming out, and I straight up stole that from my men's league. So I was gonna just go with the Rochester Red Wings out of a little bit of a call out. But since we are in this space, I want to come up with a weird one that I found while I was scrambling to be relevant in this conversation, which is the Wisconsin Udder Tuggers.
Oh, that was a fun
The
one.
Wisconsin
Wow.
Udder Tuggers, but that one is the Timber Rattlers, the Class A Brewers affiliate, has staged a Salute to the Cows theme night annually since 2009, featuring bovine themed giveaways, displays, and competitions. So the Wisconsin Udder Tuggers is going to be my vote, just so I actually contribute something to this conversation.
That logo is a fun one too. I like how you found that one. That was a quick find. I like that.
Yeah,
P
it is a
Lyons.
scramble.
Yeah, I think because Kenneth got that one wrong there at the start, he definitely needs to draft fourth. Next. So anyway, moving on.
Democracy. That's all I want to say. I don't have to just go with Patrick says.
I'll go ahead and placate the host, so maybe I can move up in the draft order here. The Fresno Tacos is fantastic. I believe it was the first alternative food identity that was out there. It was them, and I believe it was the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs doing, calling themselves the Bacon, and then it was like tacos versus bacon in the mid 2010s, and so they had a whole thing. So the taco is fantastic. They adapted it for the Rockies with the purple brim and the purple meat on the inside, which is a little questionable, but still. And in talking with some of the people over in Fresno, like I had an idea, and I'm sure probably everyone here on this podcast had the idea. Fresno Grizzlies had the exact same idea as well. They wanted to make a pin. I don't think I've said this anywhere else. They wanted to make an apostrophe S pin that you could put on your Fresno Tacos hat so that it becomes Tacos apostrophe S, just like Rockies fans know how it's properly spelled. But yet supply chain issues and what have you, the cost to make a pin like that would be astronomical just to even break even. And so we may have to wait for that kind of adaptation, but it's on their way. Fresno Grizzlies, their heads are in the right place. I'll take Fresno Tacos as the best alternative cap idea.
It's a fun one. And I think, you and I were talking about that pin in the DMs for a little bit. It's again a little sticker, maybe just put it right there, just take it on and off, easy to access. And I mean, sticker debacle of 2022, like you can make them small enough to put them on that hat, so it would work. But that's the best thing I think about minor league baseball is the luxury of the freedom to do alternative logos and have all these different identities. Like the Fresno Grizzlies have like 5, like right off the top head, that come to mind. So it's just fun. I love that minor leagues is fun and they kind of embrace that across the board. So I thought that'd be a fun way to open this. But now let's get to the good stuff here. So I feel like you might know a little something being down in Arizona, having some inside information. Feel free to share whatever you want with our 5 overlap listeners, 2 being my mom and Tyler's mom. So you're not sharing too much information is kind of what I'm getting to. But last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, Tyler and I predicted the Isotopes rotation. We predicted the Rockies rotation. We kind of have, there's like a solid 8 or 9 guys that are going to be fluctuating between the Isotopes and Rockies, and you 2 already know who those guys are. But let's go to Hartford. This got a little tricky as I was looking at it. Let's predict the Hartford Yard Goats rotation, and I want to do this like what we did last time with Tyler. We just kind of alternate. I want to go second because I just want to, and I'm in charge. So I'm going to go second. Tyler, you're going to go first. And we'll maybe go 6 or 7 deep because I know that K-Dub has a few names that he's going to want to drop, and I want to hear him talk about one person specific. I have this guy in my head that I think he's going to say. So predicting the Hartford Yard Goats rotation. Let's have some fun with it. Tyler, who is the ace of the Hartford Yard Goats going into the 2023 season?
I mean, I guess I'm throwing some pressure on him, calling him Ace, but his name is Case, so I think Case the Ace, it fits. Case Williams, I think he's a lock for the rotation, and that it's hard to say with all these minor league pitchers who's a lock for what. Like right. There's like, it feels like 30 guys to fit into 15 rotation spots between Spokane and Albuquerque. So who's a lock? I don't know, but Case the Ace is one of them.
Have you seen him do anything cool down there, Patrick? Can you share
Every time I lay my eyes on him, he's going head to head with Zach Veen, which is pretty great.
That's awesome.
I did catch up with Case this morning, and talk with him. Really, really confident, not overly, just like comfortable. Like, yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Strong young guy. I mean, definitely seems like he has a really good head on his shoulders, and went out in that final start with Hartford up in Binghamton. And he's like, said, "Hey, let's just go out, have some fun. I'm gonna do what I did when I was in Spokane," and he just shoved, right. He looked really great in that start. So I think that would have been my pick, Case the Ace, as the guy for the Yard Goats. Hopefully not very long. Hopefully he forces an issue, and he's got to go to Albuquerque pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta toss a question in here, Patrick. Since you would have a much better grasp on this than the rest of us. A lot of people throw Case Williams on their prospects list, somewhere between 20, 35, somewhere in that range. But you think the Rockies view him a little bit higher than that? Like, they think maybe he's a top 15, maybe top 10 kind of guy in their system. What are your thoughts on
that? That's hard to say. I mean, they would probably have 30 guys in their top 10. Let me answer that. Great question.
We heard right? Dick at the breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you say, all right, hey, everyone in the top 10 is untouchable. We'll trade our 11th best prospect. Hold on a second. There's 30 guys on this list. Like, yeah, exactly. You can have number 11. That's not how the math really works, but that's probably, how they view it. And what's interesting, even if you go back and look at, the college pitchers that they took in the 2020 draft between Sam Weatherly and Chris McMahon, Case Williams is ahead of both those guys, both Division I, starting pitchers there from the ACC. So, I mean, it's interesting how his trajectory has been. And, he said today that it was, refreshing in a sense. In 2020, he's, with the Rockies, then boom, gets traded to Cincinnati. Got to get a different taste of another organization early on to see how they do things and maybe take the best pieces from that, and then come back to the Rockies, utilize that accordingly. Noah Davis seems to have done the same thing in that Michael Givens trade. So that really seems to have benefited him and the entire organization at this point.
Yeah, he just seems to get it. Like, last year being his first full year as a Rocky and not having to switch here and there, I think has got to be great for his mental. And it's just like, yeah, I belong here. And then going 3 levels last year and dominating in his AA start, like, he's got to feel good about himself. I'm really stoked about Case. Love that guy. Just turned 21. Like, I think he turned 21 while he's out in Arizona. I'm sure he enjoyed that. My number 2 starter is going to be Joe Rock. Friend of the pod, of course, but he's also electric. I love the lefty, the bull horns down, I'm going to attack you mentality. Him and Case are very similar in that sense. I do worry about how well he does with runners on. I think he had like a pretty terrible split, at least 1.0 ERA split between runners on and nobody on. So something he's got to work on going into this upcoming season. But his stuff is electric. His mentality is electric. And I think he's gonna struggle at Hartford the first part of the season, but I can see him figuring it out, just that dog in him coming up to the top of the glass there with Joe Rock. And like, I'm excited to watch him play. Goats are gonna be fun. Let's go K-Dub. K-Dub, 3 spot.
I was afraid that Patrick was going to make sure he got on that soapbox and demanded I was 4th after the introduction on that. There's a lot of really, really good names to choose from, and it's interesting when you really dig into this conversation, because the question can be who's going to start the season at AA,
yep,
and who will get called up along the way and maybe spend a lot of time at AA. I think I'm gonna take one that could probably fit in both categories, and that's going to be Chris McMahon. Talking with Chris Forbes during the season, the Rockies head of player development, McMahon was assigned to Hartford last year to begin the season. He was very, happy about the assignment, really looking forward to it. And that lat injury just completely derailed his season. So, it's a bit of a do-over year. McMahon's looking to in 2023, but with some of, the uncertainties about the state of the farm system heading into last season, McMahon was a very prominent name at the top of the pitching list for Rockies prospects, and he has a ability to just kind of pick up where he left off and leave 22 behind him. Still really good stuff. Really showed well in every stop, especially with Spokane primarily in 2021. It might not be more than a middle of the rotation ceiling for him, but there's a true wipeout slider that exists with him. There's always been a good fastball there, and the change has always been a little bit more advanced than that's prevented him from the reliever risk label compared to some other guys. So happy and healthy in 2023 has got to be the goal for Chris McMahon in the first place. But I think him starting in Double-A, and honestly, with the favor that the organization has for him in the first place, Rock had some experience there. Case Williams is obviously somebody that's very well regarded from Bill Schmidt and his staff. But there's a good chance that they might lead with McMahon kind of being that quote unquote ace for the Yard Goats in 2023. So I feel like he's as sure of a bet as any to be in Hartford as long as he's healthy in 2023.
Yeah, I like that sentiment, and I think I agree with everything you just said. I'm not going to add anything. I like that pick. All right, Patrick, can you number 4? Who are you putting out there?
This is the toughest spot because for the fifth
Yeah.
spot in the rotation, you can have a lot of fun. That's just a wild card. Like, who cares
Yeah.
at that point, right? Yeah, I think what's interesting too that throughout the Rockies organization, what they've kind of changed a little bit with Bill Schmidt there, kind of being able to do what he wants with the pieces that he drafted, pieces that he scouted, and that he's been working with Chris Forbes in player development, as Kenneth points out, is that he's able to put these guys in places to challenge them in the best possible way and be aggressive with that. We've seen the last 2 years players come up to the big league roster from Double-A. We hadn't seen that in virtually a decade. Feltner did it in 21, and then Noah Davis last year. Joe Rock, with how aggressive he was, kind of, skipping over Fresno, and a lot of players like that. So you could see someone from Fresno possibly, 21-year-old. He's going to be 22 this season. Brian Castillo. I think Jordy Vargas might be a little bit too aggressive to start the season like that. But a young guy that, was really solid last year. There's nobody really that young that you're going to look to. There's some guys that might be a little bit old. It's crazy to say that like 25 is too old in Double-A, but it might be with the options because there is a little bit of back into the rotation depth. I would like a guy like Mason Green. He was much better in Fresno than he was at High A Spokane. But I could see him, getting an opportunity in Double-A. His numbers were just so incredibly solid. Again, at Low A, a left-hander who can bring it the way he did, was phenomenal. And in college, he was 27-0 in college at Central Missouri, like 16-0 his senior year. So he is a guy that is intriguing, is interesting. Again, slinging it from the left-hand side. So I tend to think that maybe the Rockies, without any real information, just looking at all the pieces together and how they fit, I could see him getting an opportunity to start his year in Hartford.
Yeah, he really made a name for himself in the organization last year. Like what he did in Fresno was insane. So I like that. Not what I would have had, but I like how you went there. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's why we asked you to be here. Tyler, who you got for the number 5 spot? And then I think we'll just go real quick for the rest of us. Give it like a 6, 7, 8.
I mean, yeah, I'll try to keep it a rapid fire pace too. I'll go make this a real southpaw pen and toss Evan Shaver in there. He's a guy who coming out of the draft. I mean, there was some early round hype on him, and the Rockies snatch him up. I think it was round 7. That might not be right. No,
you're right.
He was
7.
He was a little bit of a later guy, and he had some round 2, round 3 hype kind of early in the college season, and he's got the stuff to match it. He's got there's a lot of potential with his slider and his changeup, and he's a lefty that can sit in the low 90s. So there's definitely some value in that. He's got the pitchability as well. So he's someone he got to high A. He pitched somewhat well there, well enough I think to get that push to Hartford.
I like that. I think I might steal K-Dub's thunder here. But feel free to add on to it. I'm adding Nick Bush to the 6-7 spot. I don't know if he'd be AAA or AA. He's that iffy spot. Just being on the injury list the last half of last season, his first 100 innings were fantastic. 3.6 ERA, like that, almost 9 K per 9 with a sub 2 walk per 9. Like, he was fantastic, and his stuff is great. He's just really fun, methodical pitching. I just think the injury last year, they might play a little slow with him. So he might start this season. Hartford, definitely expect him to be at AAA at some point, but I didn't know where to put him. So I'm going to put him in here just so I could talk about him, then hear K-Dub talk about him right afterwards.
Oh, I mean, I was glass half full, and Nick Bush never even crossed my mind because I just immediately put him in ink to be in Albuquerque, to be honest. So the points are valid with Nick Bush, but I think at the same time he has earned the right to be in Albuquerque. And considering there's not a lot blocking his path for a spot in the Albuquerque rotation, I understand that there's some overflow on the major league depth chart that's there in Albuquerque, but I give Bush the benefit of the doubt, and
Okay.
maybe there's some rosy colored glasses when it comes to that. For my next one, I want to say Mike Ruff, because I think Mike Ruff in the same capacity really just deserves a full crack at the at AA for an entire season. I don't think he's done anything to deter his ability to be a good back end starter. But I'm going to go off the beaten path a little bit, and I'm going to say Jaden Hill. I think the way that we
Sleeper.
talk about aggressive assignments with somebody like Joe Rock last year, the way that they were kind of handling McMahon up to that point, for Jaden Hill, it has to be health. First and foremost, he has to kind of push that 100 innings this year, because for a lot of his collegiate career and for in his first season in pro ball, he just hasn't racked up the innings. But the talent is there for him to fly through the system pretty quickly, especially on the lower level side. So while I wouldn't be surprised if he starts in high A Spokane, I could see the organization aggressively pushing Hill and him getting to AA sooner rather than later, just with how big that stuff is.
It's a
I like
good
that.
call.
That's spicy.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm gonna have to tip over my king there and just I'm out. That's you still have to pick last in our fantasy draft, but
He's so
that's a
sweet.
good one. I'm surprised no one picked Tony Losi. I know that he struggled a little bit when he moved up to AA last year in the rotation, but as one of the younger guys, only just finished up his age 23 season, I could see maybe him getting that opportunity. I don't think the Rockies are necessarily looking to say, well, he was one of the guys that came over in the Nolan Arenado deal, so he's gonna, that's somewhat of a tiebreaker. I don't really think that goes into it that much. It's there. I don't think it goes into it that much, but it's there. I think I could see him possibly, getting that opportunity over a guy who was a little bit more successful, with Spokane, like Andrew Quezada, who I think he had tied for the second most amount of wins last year in the minors for the Rockies. Now that's an important stat for Manny Randall if he happens to be listening. Hashtag kill the win. But Case Williams had the most, and then Andrew Quezada was right there. So he kind of put up. So he's not young, but he's certainly kind of earned that opportunity in Hartford. So I'll take him as my number 5 starter as a wild card.
Yeah, I like that. He was on my list too. So okay, real quick, where do you see Jeff Criswell? AAA?
Yep.
Okay. And that was pretty much all I had. Okay.
I'll throw a weird one in there.
Go
Sam
ahead.
Weatherly.
Yeah, he was on my.
He should have been mentioned, I think.
I think he's going to turn into an arm. I think they're going to try him at the back end of the rotation or arm bullpen area. I just think that lefty, he struggled when he was healthy, finding the zone. So I think just him going out doing 1 inning of electric, I can just see him just transitioning to that bullpen piece. But he was on my list too. Very Chris McMahon like. I don't know. Definitely top Spokane, low Hartford, right in there.
Yeah, there are questions about him coming out of the draft if he would be able to stick as a starter, and if the health was a little bit better, maybe he would have been able to he certainly would have gotten the opportunity, but maybe he would have been able to have that come to fruition. But now at this point where you've run a little bit out of runway, and your path to the big leagues might be a little bit more obvious if you go the reliever route, something that Logan Allen is experiencing right now with the Rockies. And it could it's definitely going to increase his likelihood of him making the opening day roster. And certainly coming up at some point, should somebody go down. It's crazy to think that the Rockies could possibly have 3 left-handed relievers in the same
wild.
And Brent Suter, Lucas Gilbreth, Logan Allen. Talk about being spoiled. But you failed starters. You're right. That's who relievers are. But some of them can go on to have really great careers. One of the best failed starters of all time is the best closer of all time, and the only guy to get 100% going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's Mariano Rivera. So what I'm trying to say is Sam Weatherly will be the next Mariano Rivera.
That's
Hall of
all.
Famer.
That's all I'm taking
Yeah.
away from that.
Nice.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
heard it here first.
All right, one more name.
Not to under promise.
Yeah, right. Put that on a t-shirt. McCade Brown. Big strikeout numbers, big dude, very repeatable delivery. He just has some pop to his fastball. Maybe taking starting at high A.
Tyler.
I'm thinking probably just because he kind of fits in that Sam Weatherly mold where coming out of the draft, it's like we gotta take it slow with this guy, because if we hit with him, like we hit with him. But if you push him and certain things get rattled, that's something you don't want to take too big of a risk on. So I think he's one of those, probably Spokane. And at the end of the day, someone has to pitch at Spokane. There's like a lot of guys who could pitch in Hartford, a lot. And I think kind of the sad takeaway, just to tie things back with Weatherly a little bit, it's sad that some guys, and I don't endorse Weatherly to the pen. I want to see him start, but some guys have to bite that bullet because there's too many starters in the system. Like how I started this segment off, not all these guys can start. There's a ton of them. So, that's going to be kind of a fun, bittersweet storyline to watch as the minors get rolling, is who's actually in the rotation, who's in the bullpen. But to answer the question, McCade Brown, yeah, I think Spokane makes the most sense for him.
He was much better than what his final numbers were.
Yeah.
Last year in Fresno, like 5.22 ERA. But again, that's much more of a hitter's league. It was only slightly worse than league average, but his strikeout to walk ratio was huge. I mean, 5-1. So he has the command and he's able to miss bats. So that puts him up there as a potential guy to go ahead and skip high A, or again, do the thing where, he makes 2-3 starts. If he shoves, does a good job, then any of our wild cards for number 5 in the Hartford rotation, ends up getting moved out and he gets fast tracked.
Yeah. Have to agree.
A hard pill to swallow, as Tyler was mentioning, is there's only so many spots that you have. There's a very real world that exists where you have Jaden Hill, Gabriel Hughes, and McCade Brown headlining the Spokane rotation to start the season. So it's not double A because you have some more bodies in there, but for a less friendly league than Fresno and the Eastern League, honestly, that Northwest pitching staff, they can go out there and shove pretty quickly. And that's what makes me think, as some other guys graduate, Hughes and Hill and maybe Brown, they can be double A by, the midway point of the season.
And, maybe we get a little ambitious and toss a Jordy Vargas in there. That'd be fun.
Victor Juarez too. I want Victor Juarez in that conversation too. Like the pitching depth is there. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out as it keeps going forward. We don't really have any stud ace caliber guy. Maybe like a Jaden Hill is like that true, maybe 1-2 guy, but I think that's pushing it. So that's kind of disheartening, but there is a lot of talent that there's going to be fighting competition building off of each other as that season goes on. Like the starting rotations across the board is going to be fun, because then you have Jackson Cox, Jordy Vargas, Palmquist, and a few other guys down in Fresno starting. Like it's going to be fun. The starting pitching is one of those things I'm going to be watching as the minor league season goes on. It's gonna be good. All right. So before we get into the draft thing, I also need to promote ourselves. So if you are a first time listener because of the talent that we added tonight with Patrick and K Dub, we do a lot of banter sessions. A lot of those names that we just mentioned are people that we've talked to. So if you want to get to know the player a little bit, it's one of the things that we love to do, promote those guys. Like Chris McMahon was one of the first few guys that we talked to. Sam Weatherly, Joe Rock, Case Williams is on our friends of the pod list. So if you are new to us, we do more than just talk nonsense. We do interview some players, let you get to know them in a little bit better, and that's definitely where our fun really comes through with that. So Aaron Shunk just dropped on Monday, so just saying, go listen, go get to know some of these players that are coming up through the system with us. All right, that's my little plug. I'm done. Roundtable questions. Let's talk a little bit major league stuff, random major league stuff, and then get into our insert clever name draft. Still need some help with that. Roundtable questions, open, whoever just wants to go for it. The more and more that comes out, the more and more people outside the Rockies organization doesn't quite believe that Ezequiel Tovar is the opening day shortstop. Keith Law is very adamant about saying he needs to start at AAA, get his footing down, really figure it out down there before getting the full-time job. You hear he's just given the full-time job instead of competing for it. What are your expert takes? Is Tovar the opening day shortstop? And whoever wants to speak first gets it first.
He's obviously the opening day shortstop. That being said, I don't know that he'll be the opening day shortstop.
See?
Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, it's a tough spot. You know, Harold Castro, I think he's going to be making the 26-man roster. I think he'll be there in San Diego. He's not a good, defensive shortstop, so he won't be starting there. He's going to be the utility guy that Alan Trejo, was supposed to be, and picking up an outfielder's mitt and going out there shagging some fly balls, which I have not seen firsthand yet so far this spring. And so now that means Trejo would possibly have to go back to AAA, but he doesn't really have anything else to prove. Whereas Ezequiel Tovar could quite possibly, need to prove something. If Trejo's tearing it up down in AAA and Tovar is struggling just a little bit, what are those questions going to be like from myself and other people and Kenneth? Kind of, you got to ask those kind of questions, and that can be difficult, that can be challenging. Or you put Trejo on the roster, maybe you carry all three. If Castro is the super utility guy, and maybe you see him in the outfield a little bit more, and Trejo's the backup infielder, Tovar's struggling. Well, now, hey, Trejo's a young guy. He's trying to establish himself. Maybe he goes out, has a really solid World Baseball Classic there with Team Mexico as their starting shortstop. There's going to be those whispers and that conversation, and that's going to be difficult for a 21-year-old shortstop. So I feel like that could make sense where you send him back down there and you just make him, just kind of give him a little bit more seasoning to kind of ease him into this whole thing. That being said, it's still more than not. It's still 65%. He'll be the starting opening day shortstop. We'll kind of have to see how he does a little bit in spring training. Although if he's bad in spring training, I could also see that not mattering very much either.
Right. Yeah, that's why I brought up the question. So thank you for not answering it, but with an answer that was expected. Like it goes either way. It's so much fun.
Way to take a hard stance, Patrick.
Yeah, just really put your foot down, huh?
I say yes.
Yeah, you're saying yes.
I say yes, absolutely, and I think that the team says so much invested in him being one of the first faces of kind of the unspoken rebuild. I think that they want to show off Tovar. I think they've deliberately put kind of as little competition as they can around him. And I think that they have a fallback reason of, and it's true that his defense is going to be that much better than pretty much anybody else that he's competing with. I think Trejo has the capacity to be the starting shortstop, but I think if there's any excuse and any reason that the organization can make to make him the starting shortstop, they're looking for it. And so I think the deck is just so stacked so heavily in his favor from the outset that he's going to be the starting shortstop.
I mean, I think the fact that he missed like 2 months with a groin injury, yet he still managed to practically skip AAA, get to the big leagues. I think that shows the Rockies are willing to put him out there, almost no matter what. If he looks a bit out of his element in spring training and whatnot, which it's hard to imagine he goes from winning the Abby Greer Award to not looking great in spring training, but it's as much mental as it is physical, and maybe something's not clicking early on, but I think the cards would really have to be against him to not be the opening day shortstop. Like K-Dub said, I don't think there's anyone who can really handle the position defensively that's in the mix. Trejo could pass there pretty well. We look at Harold Castro. This is a hit and Harold podcast.
Hit it.
I do not
Pro-hidden.
want to watch him play shortstop. I would lose my mind if he played shortstop. So
No.
it's hard to imagine it's not Tovar.
Yeah.
I want to throw this wrinkle in there. Ezequiel Tovar has 14 days of service time. If they send him down to the minors it would probably have to be the entire month. You would get an extra year of service time. That being said, Kenneth made just a great point. Like this is Tovar's time to do it. And again, barring, maybe something extreme, there's still a chance that it might not happen. But barring something extreme, that start on opening day is going to be his. And they say, hey, you know what? It's fine. Yeah, we don't need to get him an extra year of club control. Possibly because they plan on extending him at some point. Maybe they show him the bag real early on, perhaps, and do something friendly for a young man coming out of Venezuela, where that guaranteed money is obviously going to go a long way, and we've seen a lot of players from Latin America take those kind of deals. So it doesn't just have to work out for the Rockies right now and say we'll call him up on May 1st. Then we get an extra year of club control. They still can kind of have their cake and eat it too. If they work out an extension and start him on the opening day roster. But it is a factor. Still, I think to this day, teams are operating with that in mind when it comes to service time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It'd be a real bad luck if Dick Monfort goes on the trail for 2 months before the season, touting how bright the future is and look at all our spectacular, wonderful prospects. And then, that guy Tovar that you saw last year, he's going to be amazing, but he needs a month. We think he just needs a month because he needs to get better at first to third. And his base running, that aspect needs a little bit of time on it, but no. Now he's good in May. So, it would be ugly if they did it for the service time. But I mean, one of the first columns that I jumped on in the offseason was talking about an Ezequiel Tovar extension for the exact reasons that Patrick laid out. He's kind of a prime candidate of somebody. Okay, this is the guy that you're putting on the faith in the org, for the future in, and he's somebody that might be looking for that early extension more than some other prospects would. If he's your dude, put your money where your mouth is too. So the service time becomes irrelevant at that point. I think that's an excellent point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do the Rockies really do service time? I don't know if they've had very many opportunities. I think that's why I'm not really thinking of anybody coming to mind, but they don't really seem like that organization that really manipulates the service time as much as maybe other teams. Maybe, I don't know. If you do know.
Hit the nail on the head. Right? You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of opportunity, and then also just like, hey, we're not gonna do our guy dirty like that. So it's kind of both of those things.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was feeling. All right, yeah, but it's still there. It's still a question mark you have to answer. Can we just shut up the haters, please? How many games will Veen play in center field for the Rockies in his entire career? Give me an over under and tell me why it's under.
I love that we have specified for his entire career.
Yes,
because that means any answer is applicable. We never know what's going to happen out there. You could have the outfield plague strike the Rockies, where just nobody can stay healthy in center field except for Zach Veen. I mean, you never know. I'm going to throw the over under at, like, if we're talking starts, I'm going to keep it low and go 15 and a half. I just don't see that as the future role.
Aaron, you did say in his career with the Colorado Rockies.
Yes.
So, Tyler, do you want to make an adjustment there, knowing that if he were to get traded perhaps for a package of prospects at some point in his career and go for another team that ends his time with the Rockies. So, see, this is why Aaron's a good host. He throws those questions out there with a little bit of spin on it to change it up. I would set the over under at 6.5, and I would still take the under.
Thank you.
Ooh, I'm higher just on the team being in a desperate situation and Veen having the capacity to do it. Because Doyle and Montgomery are kind of labeled as the future, but if Doyle or Montgomery are basically, if Doyle doesn't pan out necessarily with the bat and becomes Sam Hilliard, and Montgomery maybe has a rash of injuries and that kind of becomes a storyline in his career, where else are you going to go? And so it would be a disservice not to get Zach Veen acclimated to center field, because he could probably just be passable with it. That said, I definitely agree that the mentality is, he's going to be an above average corner outfielder, so leave it at that. But if the Rockies are in a pinch and they need to lean on Veen for long stretches and he's here for 6 years, I'll go 40.5. Go 40.5 and under. Yeah. But again, so he has the capacity. It's something like Randall Grichuk, where it's, he's not great at center field, but he can do it. And if you're in a pinch to do it, you at least know you're putting somebody out there that can handle it for a period of time. So it's high over the course of a career, but him just basically being that last resort, you've seen them have to lean on it before. So it could happen.
A quick trivia question. After 2011, Carlos Gonzalez's age 25 season, how many times did he play in center field?
So I was going to use this as a baseline for it. And I was just like, I wonder, because with Cargo, it ended up being like, you knew he had to. He got a ton of time in center field. A ton of time. Now, if you're saying after 2011, that's when they shut him down. Totally.
Yeah.
But my first thought was, okay, they were able to play Cargo, and then, they had to save legs. So I'll let you spoil that answer, but he got a lot of time for his career with the Rockies in center field.
I'm going single digits. I don't remember seeing him out there. He was always in right field.
Yeah, cue the anytime you do trivia on the show, this could be the new segment. You throw up a player and you see his jersey number, and that's the answer. So go ahead and throw up the Adam Ottavino jersey, because that's how many times Carlos Gonzalez played even a single inning in center field, despite the fact he still had good legs after his age 25 season in 2011. 0.
Is that when Dexter Fowler? Is that Dexter Fowler's time though? So they had that person that could be that center fielder. And so,
he's going to put up a 0 when you have a natural center fielder out there
right,
too.
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned some names that could possibly play center, but I think Jordan Beck might also be a name that could play center.
I hope.
At a very good pace with a strong bat coming through with Benny and Doyle coming through. Also a big fan of Braden Ward. He can man it. He can pick some bases if we need to go Juan Pierre on the NL West, if we need to bring that back. All right, last round type of question. Which first year arm will make the biggest impact in 2023? So we have a lot of homegrown talent coming through the system, a few names on the 40-man roster that got put up. This is a nice little segue, master the segue here into our insert clever name draft coming up right after this. So maybe this is a prequel of your picks, but which first year arm will make the biggest impact in 2023?
I guess I'll kick us off here. Give me small forward Gavin Hollowell. He's going to play on the perimeter for us, 3-and-D kind of guy. No, but he's 6'7". I think I just love that he's 6'7". We don't really, see that many guys come through like that. And I think it gives him unique leverage that has, given him a huge benefit in his career. And he's got just ridiculous stuff. I think he just had a few missed locations this past season and the cup of coffee, and that might leave a bad taste in some people's mouth. But I mean, he and Justin Lawrence, the Rockies have a lot of guys with great stuff, but Hollowell is just up there with any of them. He's got really good stuff. So it's Gavin Hollowell for me.
I like that. What do you got?
So you're asking about rookie pitchers with the Rockies?
first year arm
in the majors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Gavin Hollowell and Blair Calvo as the guys. I mean, Riley Pint's also on the 40-man roster. Phineas Del Bonta Smith, he was in that Arizona Fall League. Played pretty well. Some of the Zips projections seem to like him, just a little bit. So he could be one of those sleepers. It's so hard for relieve pitching sleepers to like break through, because having seen Reagan Todd in the Arizona Fall League in 2021 and how good he was in that 2021 season, and the fact that he's a Colorado kid, it's like, this is going to be the story of 2022. And he hasn't sniffed the major leagues. He was fine in Albuquerque last year, but just wasn't the same kind of. You lose some of that momentum. It's like the Riley Pint situation, where it seemed like he could have made his major league debut last year, right? Would have been a great story. Would have been kind of a Winton Bernard-esque tale for a reliever. Would have made sense. He got hurt, and now that kind of resets everything. And you look and you say, is he going to be able to, now he's got to do even more, right? Because at least he had some momentum from the 2022 season, but now it's a whole new year. So now he's got to rebuild up all that momentum again. And so that lightning in a bottle, you have to have it strike twice. So that can be hard. I think Gavin Hollowell very much could be a dude. I think it's like him, and Justin Lawrence is definitely a darling nationally, where Pitching Ninja loves Justin Lawrence. I mean,
yes, it does.
He's fantastic in that way. And I think Gavin Hollowell could be like that next guy for people who notice, like, hey, wait a minute, this guy's interesting.
Yeah. Big on Gavin. I get that. What do you got, K-Dub?
Yeah, I think it's wise to start the conversation with Hollowell, and I think Calvo is gonna perform enough to really put himself in that spot. I want to say Pint, because they're gonna give him every opportunity, honestly, to not only make it to the big leagues, but be able to fill a role quickly. But what I'm gonna go with is Ryan Rollison, and
Ooh.
it might be a little controversial because the conventional thinking is Ryan Rollison starting pitcher. But I think that there's a very obvious plan that can be fit into place with getting Rollison back on track after missing a lot of time, and also kind of having a five in mind for the rotation in the first place, and that's to make him a long man in the bullpen. And so, Patrick was bringing up just how how the Rockies are lousy with lefties in their bullpen these days. Well, you can throw another one into the mix, honestly, with Ryan Rollison, and it will also be good for his development to catch up from the injuries that have derailed basically the last 2-3 years of his career. I think him being able to be a long man and being able to be effective and build up a little bit to probably take over in the rotation eventually really makes a lot of sense from the outset if he is healthy in spring training. So I'll say Rollison.
I like that pick. And that mentality, that it makes sense. Kind of got me thinking Noah Davis. I can see him doing something very similar with Noah Davis in that kind of sense. I'm surprised none of you said it, but I can see why you didn't say it. But PJ Puyan, big strikeout arm. He struggled with the walks last year at Albuquerque, but his strikeout rate's there. Can give you a solid inning if you need it. But he definitely needs to figure out the walks at altitude and all that. But I like his arm a lot. And again, all these were arms at the Hartford Yard Goats last season that were just tremendous, like 6, 7, 8, 9 innings. Like, it was shut down. Like Blair Calvo, I love that he is on the 40-man and got the recognition that he deserved, because he was lights out before his injury last season. So just, there's some, again, just us building up. There is some light at the end of the tunnel. There is some good talent coming through the system. And just whether it's hits at the major league level or not is what we're going to find out here. Love it. All right.
I left PJ off my list because I didn't have any confidence in saying his last name. But you can throw Nick Kennedy into that conversation too.
Nick Kennedy, I like that. He was one of the very first players that got 4 strikeouts in an inning last year with the new rule. No, struck out somebody with 2 strikes. That was the rule with the pitch clock last year. He was one of the first few pitchers that got that. But yeah, Kennedy's a good one. All right. Do any of you have an insert clever name for the insert clever name draft? Or can we just go with that? Keep it the
I
Blake
think
Street
nailed
banter
it.
way.
No notes.
No notes.
I think we just go with it.
All right.
It's how it is how we do it around here.
Very professional. So this is our insert clever name draft. Please correct me if I say this wrong, but basically we're all going to pick a rookie eligible player to earn points. Points are earned by at bats and plate appearances and batters faced. So there's a good threshold that pretty much is pretty even. Like a plate appearance for a batter is pretty much the same equivalency as a batter face for a pitcher. They're pretty 1-to-1 ratio stuff. So we are drafting a 3-player team that we're going to follow throughout the season. Whoever is going to have the most impact at the major league level, following that system. We're all going to pick one hitter, one pitcher, and then the third player can be any position. I think that makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
So we'll go with that. Making up the draft as we go. I think K-Dub is last, but we are doing Snake. So
wah, wah. Man, you said that with such just assurance. There was just the confidence behind stick me at the end of the bus. Wow.
I know you're a strong competitor, and I'm looking for any edge that I could possibly get to make my voice heard a little bit more as definitely the low end of the totem pole of this expert list here. So I'm gonna go second. Tyler, you go first because it's our pod, not Patrick's.
All right.
And Patrick, you get to go second.
Good.
Again, snake draft. Pick whatever player you want. Does not matter position or hitter. And give it like a little brief summary why you chose that player. Tyler?
This is tough. There's two guys I'm fighting between right now, but just given the lack of certainty in center field, I'm gonna go Brenton Doyle. I think he might not perform, but he's gonna get run because he can run. So there's some other guys I think that you guys are gonna snatch up very quickly here, but just gonna keep it a little exciting and get Brenton Doyle.
Yeah, I like that pick. And we are including, for the record, Nolan Jones in this. There's a few other names that we're not, but Nolan Jones is part of this. So with that said, I'm taking Nolan Jones. I really like Nolan Jones. I think he'll earn, I don't know. I'm really big on Sean Bashard too. But I think Nolan Jones' power is going to get him some playing time with some injuries that are going to hit the outfield. They're guaranteed to hit. So I'm going Nolan Jones as being the next man up in that outfield position. And so he's going to be my first pick.
Nice. All right. With the third overall selection in the insert name rookie draft. You got to brand it that way because you have multiple drafts with insert name draft. So this is the insert name rookie draft. If the goal is to get the most playing time, I think by the end of the year, Ezequiel Tovar will have amassed the most time in the big leagues, so long as the groin injury doesn't flare up or whatever. So even if he were to somehow sit out for the first month of the season down in AAA, which again odds are against that, he's going to play a lot and he's going to be really exciting. So I'll take him first.
I feel like I'm an idiot that I didn't choose him. But we'll put that off to another segment.
Me too.
Damn it.
I had a lot of false hope right there. It got to the third pick and I was like, is this gonna happen? Like, okay. No, I completely agree that Ezequiel Tovar kind of has to be at the head of the pack with just the previous conversation. So I'll finish off the hitting core and I'll go Michael Toglia. I don't know, there's a lot that changed for Toglia in the second half last year, and the Rockies really rode that momentum to that major league call-up that he got. He needs to show that he turned the corner and he can put that production out there for a full season. And it's similar to what Brenton Doyle did. Doyle clicked a little bit later on in the season to not quite get the call up. But Toglia, there's so many first basemen on that roster that Toglia was able to get a little bit more versatility and show he could play the corner outfield spot. and he's a 3 true outcome guy, so it's going to make it tricky for him in the first place. But if he can be an on-base machine, continue to have, that thump he can provide, and still at least provide some average defense in the corner outfield spots while also being able to man first base, no problem. That's a pretty good profile to get some big league service time when they call on it. So I'll go Tolia for my hitter.
Right.
And then on the pitching side, we touched on this before, but I think that there's a very clear path for Gavin Hollowell to be getting a defined role, a setup or a middleman that could even graduate to being a setup guy. I think they're really looking to fill a hole left behind from Carlos Esteves. And Justin Lawrence is kind of that guy right now, but ideally in that bullpen, you have 3 late inning guys, 2 setup and 1 closer. And I think that second setup role is up in the air a little bit. And right now, it feels like Hollowell's has a good chance at cracking that spot and getting some really consistent 6th, 7th, or 8th inning assignments on a week-to-week basis. So I'll take Hollowell.
All right. Well, since we're taking a pitcher, position player, and a wild card, I'll go ahead and use my wild card right away because Hollowell, I think, will spend the most time in the bigs for the Rockies next year. But it's in a bullpen role, and even if a starter comes up, I think Criswell and Kaufman very well could end the season. May get a call up maybe in August. That's going to limit their time. Hollowell, even if he starts the year and or gets called up in April with the Rockies in the bullpen role, it's going to minimize his innings. So I'll kind of maybe go for the gusto a little bit more, and also take a guy who should be up by July, Zach Veen. Is his pedigree kind of speaks for itself a little bit. We have an article that just went up, shameless plug, at the DNVR.com, unlocked. So it's a freebie for everyone. And he said straight up, he was pissed. He was pissed about, what went down in the Eastern League and how he struggled. And, he got a chance to kind of reset and go down to the Arizona Fall League, and he immediately turned that around against pitchers that were, a good 3 years older than him. Was the offensive player of the year in the Arizona Fall League, and still only hit 1 home run there. But he only hit 1 in Hartford and a few more plate appearances, but he put on 20 pounds. So he came to camp, feeling good, and he said he's really going to try to put the ball in the air a little bit more. So I don't know that this puts him on any kind of 30-30 trajectory, but maybe the 15 to 20 home runs becomes more like 20-25 this year. So expect to see a little bit more power out of him, and his ability to steal bases is not because he has blazing speed. I think that's another one of the reasons why you might not see him in center field, is because he just reads pitchers really well. He gets good jumps, and I said it to him straight up. I said, hey, there's a lot of people who don't think you're blazing fast, but they do think you got a good read on pitchers and catchers. And he said that's absolutely right. So that's his deal, is that it's getting that first quick step, and so that's kind of speed that will help him in the corners. It helps him on the bases, and he'll be up this summer. It will be fun. Where were you when Zach Veen made his Coors Field debut? That's what we're all going to be saying this summer.
I think that's crazy. I love that. The wild card. You went wild with it. By the end of July, you heard it here first. Okay.
It's crazy we let Patrick get Tovar and Veen. We're all guilty of this, but
I believe in Veen. I'm on the Veen dream train. However, July, I think that's just too early this year. But that's why I'm here.
Maybe
you're in Arizona, so maybe there's a difference between you and I. So whatever. Love the pick. And dude, man, I what he said, I love his mentality, like the pissed off attitude and just coming in to grind, and then what he did at the Arizona Fall League, everything you just said. I think it will take him places in 2023. So I agree with the sentiment. It's just crazy to think as Veen in purple by the end of the year. All right, my turn. Going back and forth. I don't know. I think I'm going to go friend of the pod. Kind of mentioned him earlier. Just love his makeup. Master tinker himself, Noah Davis. He got that action last year. We don't need to talk about it, but he got that action last year. His stuff will play at the major league level. I can see him put him, like I said earlier, starting as the reliever, turning starter, vice versa. Like that fifth, sixth arm spot, like you just put him there wherever, and he's going to be able to execute at whatever certain time. What he was doing at the end of Hartford last year when he was finally done tinkering and just like figured out what his pitches were doing, dude was like lights out for like his last 5 starts in Hartford. So, and he's just so much fun to watch, and those curls just kind of get me going also. So I am going Noah Davis as my number 2 pick.
All right. I like having Sean Bouchard available to me. He'll be my wild card. It's a tricky spot in the corner outfield first base for the Rockies, but like Bouchard earned it last year to be in the mix and to get a couple hundred play appearances. It's, especially with Grichuk starting the year on the injured list, I think Bouchard benefits from that a lot. So I'll take him as my little alternate, and then this pitcher spot is stumping me. I probably would have gone with Noah Davis, but I'll flip it to the other side, other handedness, and go Ryan Rollison. We talked about him a good bit. I think at some point he's just going to get innings, whether it's in that bullpen role we kind of discussed, or he starts like 5 games or something at some point. I feel confident he'll get 30-40 innings, so I'll take that.
I like that. Yeah. And just to clarify, Bouchard is not rookie eligible, but we did clarify at the beginning of this pod, whatever this thing is. He's eligible just because Sean Bouchard is that dude. I love that pick, Tyler. I was hoping you wouldn't pick him. So I'm going through it here. I think I'm going with the other name. It is what it is. I'm either going PJ or Pint. And I think I'm big on PJ, but I'm going to say the Pint's completely full. I'm going Pint on this. I just think the story's there. Rockies love a feel good story. He's back. His stuff is electric. That slider is so much fun to watch. And I just think he is on that fast track, added to the 40-man roster. Just all of the stars are in line for him to be there in the Rockies uniform. Maybe not opening day, but very, very shortly after. He's definitely 1 or 2 next up on the list as soon as somebody hits the injured list. So I'm adding a Pint to my table here, and adding him as my 3rd.
All right, so I need to take a picture. And Blair Calvo is the only one that's on the 40-man roster right now of those rookie players. We didn't mention Nick Mears. I mean, and that would have been more in the previous segment of new guys that are in the bullpen, but he's not a rookie. But he deserves a shout out because he's got a pretty cool story. And so that would be nice for him to find some success. But because it only takes a handful of starts to almost record as many innings or as batters faced as a reliever could in virtually an entire year, I got to look to starting pitcher. It's between either Jeff Criswell or Carl Kaufman. And I'm trying to get a reaction off of Kenneth, and I can't get a good read to see who's more interested in. But although Criswell is incredibly interesting, he has a little bit of swag actually from what I've seen around the clubhouse, and just walking around the backfields. But because Kaufman did it, a little bit longer, and he's one of those homegrown guys, that they drafted in 2019, and he also has an interesting story because they shut him down because he pitched so late in the College World Series there in 2019. In fact, Criswell and Kaufman, they were teammates together on that squad. Criswell, I think, was in the bullpen at that point, but nevertheless, Kaufman got shut down in 2019, pandemic in 2020, pitched at the alternate site, but basically had to wait, 2 years to finally make his debut. And outside of, 1 or 2 starts in Spokane, pretty much made his debut in Hartford, pitched his entire first year as a pro in AA. So I'm gonna go Carl Kaufman because he's still really interesting. And I think if you just look at his ERA, you might say, oh man, this guy, he's only somewhat okay, but he's got that tough mentality. He's a Michigan guy, so I know Aaron will like that pick a lot.
Yeah, and he's a friend of the pod, so always love that pick there. But his ERA, his numbers don't say anything, but he figured it out at each level. Like he was terrible at Hartford in 2021, but 2022 is awesome. Didn't do so hot in Albuquerque last year, but you got to assume he's going to figure that out. He's able to make those adjustments. So I like that pick. I like that.
Yeah, I'm a believer in Kaufman. I think almost too much gets made of 13 games at Albuquerque, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to his control. I think he was a better pitcher than he showed at the end of the season. And I think honestly that was kind of 2 years of redlining him, kind of hitting him a little bit at the end of last season. So I like Kaufman. Whether or not he gets the opportunity, I think is where my question is with that. All right, so since the cover's basically been picked pretty clean, I'm gonna reach back a little bit and I'm gonna get a little weird with this one. I'm gonna go Willie McIver.
Willie Mack.
I'm gonna go Willie Mack, and the Rockies have a proclivity for running two catchers on their 40-man roster and getting away with it. One of these times they're not. And so, if an injury strikes, you got to think who's in line to fill as a backup catcher. And I think, Willie Mack has done well at each level. I think he's graduated appropriately. And I think he's also created and worked to get as much versatility as he can to make himself appealing as a call-up option, kind of a Jordan Pacheco type of mold. So this pick is a little bit more based off of opportunity. But that's part of it, because the amount of plate appearances that are going to come, they have to come at the expense of somebody else, basically. So with catching being a fairly thin position on the upper level side of it, Willie Mack stands out. So I'm gonna go with him as my wild card pick.
I love that. And pitchers love throwing to Willie Mack too. So I think that defensive capability that he can throw in there might give him that extra push, because they're definitely calling him up before Jonathan Morales. Hunter Goodman. I don't know. They could throw another wild card in there, but I like
Goodman at catcher is a wild card in its own right. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't argue with that one. I got nothing on that. And Willie Mack, love Willie Mack, friend of the pod too. So I like that, and his hair is gorgeous, just as much as Noah Davis is. I guess on that, Patrick, since you're our resident expert down in Arizona, how's the whole catching stuff going? Like I saw the Roniker Palma being Braxton Fulford, like them joining the crew down there. Thought those were two interesting names. Are they just down there because let's pitchers the catchers? We're throwing all the names that we have in the system down there, or is there really some belief in some of those names down on the bottom end of those minors?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? The Rockies have really strong catching core, like bottom line, like that's something that they could deal from. Obviously, probably not to acquire something at the trade deadline to improve their chances in the postseason, but more of a hey, you guys have a need, and we need a little something, a challenge trade like that. I think could go really far because you only have so many spots here for these guys to get more everyday reps, or at least be the starter 3 out of every 5 days. So you need those bodies there in camp. But the fact that they're going with the homegrown talent, they're going with the guys in house rather than signing that career catcher that's 31, 32, that maybe hasn't been up in the big leagues in a little while, to help work with your staff. They trust their young guys enough. So Palma, I didn't realize that he lacked a certain amount of size. He's the Tony Walters model. He was bigger than that. His name just speaks like a guy. He speaks like a William Rosario type name, and it's more of a Tony Walters vibe. But he's great behind the plate. Is very good defensively. Braxton Fulford, obviously, that the organization trusts him with their pitchers because he was there in the Arizona Fall League and just got taken in 2021. So it's not like they're getting a look at him because do we put him on the 40-man roster because he might get taken in the Rule 5 draft? No, not at all. It was more about what he was able to do and work with those pitchers that were down there. So that was a huge piece of that. Drew Romo, a guy that we haven't brought up, that should start his season at Double-A Hartford as well, and kind of reunite with Zach Veen there once again. So they've got a lot of really good guys there. And Jonathan Morales, I think he quietly had a really, really solid year. at AAA. And so, depending on what the situation is, would Morales go up instead of McIver? Probably not if you're looking for a true catcher, but if it's more of a look, we just kind of need something temporarily, maybe something like that could happen. But McIver was not next on my list. I had Hunter Goodman slightly higher only, and this is a question I want to ask you guys. Willie McIver, if they need another catcher, it's Willie McIver, period, right? I mean, what we're looking at this year is identical to last year, where Dom Nunez was clearly the backup. Great, it's fine. Elias Diaz is a starter, but the first guy up in AAA is that replacement if the backup doesn't get the job done. So if Brian Serven isn't serving up, home runs and isn't working with the pitching staff as well as they would like, Willie McIver will slide back up, right? It could be a repeat of history. But if they're both healthy and Serven is doing what he needs to do, where's Willie McIver's opportunity? Where's Hunter Goodman's opportunity? He doesn't need to catch to get up there, right? If he goes out and he's clubbing home runs like he did last year, is he at first base? There is a DH in the National League now, which allows for a lot more flexibility, and he's playing in the outfield a little bit too, and making some sick backflip plays. It's a little showboaty, but no, he's not doing that. But he's going to learn how to play the outfield. So his path to the big leagues isn't going to block him quite as much, right? Because if Serven and Diaz are doing what they need to do, it's going to be hard for McIver to get up. Whereas Goodman, if he continues to rake, he'll get that opportunity first. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm curious what you guys think of the odds of who gets to the big leagues first for totally different reasons. But who gets to the bigs first, Goodman or McIver?
Yeah,
Tyler.
I think we know K-Dub's stance. He snagged him up. Like you said with Goody, he can get it done with the bat to the point that can carry him to the big leagues. And being able to throw them all around the diamond too, that's going to get him an opportunity. Whereas Willie Mack, I mean, he has the athleticism to play around the diamond, but he hasn't shown enough with the bat that you're going to just bring him up to be that, that extra guy. So Goodman, whether or not it's to be a second or even a third catcher kind of situation, he can get it done on kind of on both sides of the ball. I don't know if he's a great defensive catcher, but he can play catcher and he can rake, so gets it done both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I would still lean Willie. The logjam that is there at the corners. You bring up Goodman, then you're taking bats away from Tolia and Montero and McMahon and Crone. Like maybe they trade Crone at the deadline. That might open something up for Hunter, but we know they're not going to trade Crone at the deadline. So, like, I don't know if 1 year in the system quite earns that major league debut next year, even if he is raking at the minors the way he was last year. Led the league in home runs for second. I think he might have been second last year in all of minors and home runs. I just think the log jams at all the corners are too much to really push Hunter, even how well he's hitting. So I think a catching is going to be a drastic need before adding another corner piece.
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of the sentiment that you have, Aaron, and just to lay it all on the table. So if Hunter Goodman is going to be kind of relegated to first base and maybe he can handle left field and right field, you're essentially having Goodman leapfrog Tolia, Nolan Jones, Sean Bouchard, Eleris Montero, and that's before you even get to Crone is there, Grichuk is there, Blackman to some degree is getting at bats. Doyle could be in the equation. So there's just so many people that they have on the corners. And then the last that I'll include on that, I don't see Bud Black putting Hunter Goodman behind the plate at the major league level. No. I think that there's just a proud pitcher there. So the capability is there to be that emergency catcher situation. But I think that a manager's pride would stop that from ever happening. So I think just the statistical odds are in McIver's favor of getting the opportunity more than it is for Goodman.
I think if the Rockies were a different organization where the veterans that you named that are there at the corner spots, essentially Grichuk, Crone, throwing Charlie Blackman in the final year of their deal.
Chris Bryant.
You trade them at the deadline, those three guys that are going to be free agents after this year. that frees up spot for you to be able to kind of balance all that. And again, with the designated hitter, that's, I don't know if we're counting the DH as a corner spot, but you do have the DH. I think you're right. I think again, I think the odds are in favor of Willie McIver, but it wouldn't be, there's not the blockage for Goodman to get to the majors, because if he's hitting, you're gonna just move him up. He's gonna keep going up, and it's just, we got to get this guy here. We'll figure out how to do it. And you saw what Sean Bouchard was able to do last year. That's really promising. His numbers in the minors, weren't quite the same. And you say, well, who's got a bigger upside? If Goodman is tearing the cover off the ball in AAA Albuquerque, you might say, and again, tearing off the cover looks different in the Eastern League and the Albuquerque than the Pacific Coast League. Take that with a grain of salt. But if he's doing that, you say, why are we keeping this guy down in the minor leagues for, fourth outfielder, or a guy that we're not sure is going to be a starter, or maybe is more of a bench piece? He might be able to tear his way into that starting lineup, or into a spot, 5 out of every 7 days, more so. His path to do that is in his hands, whereas unfortunately with McIver, that's not exactly the case.
I don't know, Patrick. Do you remember Montero's playing time at the beginning of last season?
What playing time?
Yes,
exactly. I just that history, and Bud Black being the veteran manager that he is, I agree with everything you said. Again, a team should be doing that. However, Rockies history doesn't really bode well to really back up what you just said.
If neither of them are up in August, it will be interesting to see. We have to reevaluate and say, all right, trade deadline has passed. Maybe a couple of veterans did leave. Maybe a couple, have not. Still Servin and Diaz. You have to look at Goodman's season and you say, okay, here we are now in August and September. Now you're starting to think about 2024, where Goodman is going to be a bigger piece of that future. It'll be interesting to see. We got a long time to go until it's August.
Right.
Zach will have made his debut by then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a veteran by that point.
Yeah, right. He's already got those at bats underway. All right. I know I want to ask one more question. We'll end it at this after our draft. Over under Rockies trades in season 1.5. We just mentioned a whole bunch of names that should probably be moved. We know we're a young team. We know the window's not now. We're pushing 24, really 25, 26 is that window. Rockies being the Rockies, blah, 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 blah. I'm putting the over under 1.5. This is our final together moment. What is your take? Over under 1.5 in season trades for the Colorado Rockies in 2023. Tyler, I'm starting with you.
All right. I'm gonna confidently, and maybe I'm gonna sound like an idiot, but I'm gonna confidently smash the over because of what we've been seeing from Bill Schmidt and kind of a new philosophy in the front office. It's a different team now. This is no longer Jeff Bridich making one trade in a calendar year. Bill Schmidt is swinging deals. They're not major trades, but we saw just this offseason a couple of significant trades that involved the 40-man roster. Kind of a theme of our pitching segment is that there's just way too many guys. And I could totally see the Rockies trading some pitching depth for, I don't think they'd trade for a backup catcher, but somewhere that there's a little bit of a need, or to get younger, a guy who's, 2 or 3 years away from the Rule 5 draft, send out a guy like Nick Bush, or just someone who is ready to contribute to kind of that swingman back of the rotation role. So I'm thinking they're going to be able to pull some tinkering moves, trade from positions of depth, and just shuffle things around. That's a bit what we've seen this offseason. So I'm going to expect 2, maybe 3 trades are going to go down in season.
Okay. I like that. K-Dub?
This was a good example of Aaron, and you need to read the fine print on his questions because it was in season specifically. And so, I agree with the sentiment of Tyler saying that Bill Schmidt has been more aggressive, but he's also done literally nothing in the last 2 trade deadlines. So there's the whole aspect of when you get in season versus the off season and the tinkering. I'll say over, and it's stinks having to think too hard about this question. I'll say over, but it's also with the caveat that it's probably not going to be for the players that make sense to move. I think it's like there's going to be 2 players to be named out there that they end up acquiring, and it's going to be ancillary moves. But I could easily see a world where CJ Crone plays out his contract and finishes the season with the Rockies and moves on as a free agent. I think Randall Grichuk could easily do the same. I think if Randall Grichuk underperforms, severely, he could end up being a DFA, to be honest. So I'll say over, but I don't think it's going to be for clearing, some of the clutter in these positions, which are the most sensible moves. I think it's just going to be really minor league stuff and just swapping projects.
Yeah, we're trying to read the fine print, and so Aaron said this season. Is he referring to the season of summer? So it's not really only like a trade
in 23
Fall.
in the season 23 season.
Okay, yeah. Well, they usually don't make any deals in April anyway of
Right.
anything of consequence. Last year I kind of had the trade deadline number at 2 even. I couldn't. I wanted to maybe make it 2.5. I thought that was too high. 1.5 felt too low. So 2 felt right there. And we got a whopping 0. We got 1 in 2021. That being said, I think 1.5 is the line. And although Tyler smashed the over, I will just lightly caress the over despite what we've seen, because I think those things can happen. Going into last season, they had only 4 free agents. They had the 3 guys on 1-year deals, which I thought was great. And those are all perfect candidates to trade. And in fact, had they, picked up the phone and maybe moved them in June, all of them had really good value. You could have gotten back something, maybe not a ton, certainly not a top 100 prospect, but you would have gotten back something and felt really good. Similar to the Hilliard trade, as well as the one that they came after for Connor Joe. And you say, all right, we like Nick Garcia, we like Dylan Spain, like that's something. This year, going into the season, before they pick up anybody on waivers, potentially, there's 7 guys that are free agents. So that I feel like that only raises the bar and the likelihood that you can kind of offload one of those guys. So it makes sense. And now that they've said it's out in the open of like, yeah, we're kind of waiting in a sense for the next group of guys to come in. It doesn't make sense to invest in this group to that degree of holding on to veteran players just to maybe avoid losing 100 games or whatever. Let those guys go out there, get some opportunities, see what you've got. I don't think going into last year, any of us would have expected what we got to see out of Sean Bouchard. And you go, well, there you go. This is why you got to give some of these guys opportunities. And so you could see more of that again. So that is why I'm going to use the soft part of the back of my hand to gently press the over button.
Yeah, it's a fun question when it comes to the Rockies. So yes, in-season trades aren't really their forte, but they're, like you just said, Patrick, there are a bunch of names that probably should be moved. But then, like what K-Dub said, it will be the moves that we don't expect. And then there's the optimistic Tyler.
What do you think, Aaron? What do you think?
Yeah, we need
the
your
line.
take.
Is going over or are you going under?
My heart says over, but my brain says under. I don't see it. I don't know if the trade value in some of those guys is going to be there. So like Crone is a very Coors merchant happy hitter. Grichuk DFA before being traded. I think he's too costly for what he provides. Jose Urena, I mean, maybe he might be somebody who moves if he has that value at the trade deadline. And then it's just, I don't know if the values are necessarily there for the trades from another team's perspective. So that's kind of why my head's saying the under, but maybe that's why the Rockies haven't made any trades. Maybe the value is just not what we think they are. So I'd like to have the pint half full, I guess. Like whatever.
Already drafted pint, so I think that's
yeah.
It's funny because CJ
it's a
Crone
theme.
is the guy that CJ Crone's the guy everybody keeps mentioning of like, yo, why maybe shouldn't be here, or he's
Right.
blocking a lot of guys. But at $7.25 million, there are other guys who signed 1-year deals with other teams, for less money that maybe have even better pedigree. So there's just
Mhm.
kind of questions that are out there. So he's gonna have to prove it, yet again. Yeah, we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happened. I don't. The return on Hilliard and Connor Joe might not have been great, but it was something, because they clearly didn't want those guys around for this year. They
Mhm.
got something. Something is always better than nothing.
Yeah, and I think that also is why I don't think it's going to be in-season moves, because they like to see their guys play out the season. Like Billy loves his guys; he's very loyal to his guys. He likes to see what they can do, and I just think he puts too much emphasis on that, to kind of see where the team that he created at the beginning of the season in April and what that's going to do all the way through September. I think he puts a lot of pride into that, and me speaking completely out of pocket when I say that, but I think there's some tendencies there. Fellas, this was fun. Thank you. K-Dub, where can we find your stuff? Go ahead, give yourself a shameless plug.
Yeah, no, and this was awesome. I want to give you guys a shout out because it's fun jumping on with you guys, and you do awesome content every single time over at Blake Street Banner. So thank you for having me. I'm over at Purple Row. You can find me every Monday. I'm going to be doing my rock pile features, and then also going to be having the full minor league coverage for the site. Um, our sorry, our minor league coverage is going to be mixed in on Mondays with my rock pile column, so it's all going to be in one bundle when the season starts. And then you can find me on Twitter at KDub1988.
Nice. No minor league pod, right? Since Justin Wick went on to
Yeah,
bigger and better pastures.
Justin's off to bigger and better things. So the Pebble Report podcast, S No Moss. But we'll be getting the Affected by Altitude podcast.
Okay.
That's going to be changing up a little bit. So I'm going to be helping out with Evan and Skylar on that. That Vox Media is up to some weird stuff these days, so it's changing and not specifically under the Purple Row umbrella. But Affected by Altitude will be around, and I'll be helping on that with Skylar Timmons and Evan Lang.
All right. So we can still hear your voice if you're not on with us. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, my Barry White.
Patrick, Lyons, who the heck are you?
Well, I feel bad for making Kenneth go last, so I'll plug his appearance on the DNVR Rockies podcast next week, because he'll be coming on. Susie will be down in Arizona, but the DNVR.com is where you go. We got a lot more stuff that's unlocked now, so most of the content really is free, so you can read all about that. And I've had an article pretty much just about every day that I've been down there, and should continue next week with all the one-on-one interviews and the DNVR Rockies podcast, 5 days a week. You can go to DNVR Sports on YouTube and search that out. And if you like Nuggets, Avs, all things Colorado, we're covering all the teams and the colleges. And on Twitter at Patrick D. Lyons, where I will be discussing things like players who've had more triples than stolen bases. Important things.
Very important things. Fellas, thank you. I'm going to plug ourselves. We are dropping our BSB prospects lists. You'll be listening to this on Monday or that week. Our Friday is when our prospect 11 through 20 list is popping out. So that's there. Noah David or Aaron Shunk banter session just dropped. We have another one coming up with Adam McKillican, which is going to be a fun one. And just a lot of banter sessions, a lot of fun. Minor league coverage is really where we try to find our niche there. So follow us, Blake Street Banter, on the Twitter, on the Instagram. Tyler at T Pador. No numbers.
That's the Instagram. If you want to get Rockies Instagramming, on Twitter at Rocks Don't Rake. They used to rake, but they do not anymore.
And so nice shameless plugs. We'll end it with that. This is going to be a fun insert clever rookie name draft segment to keep following up on. And as always, go Rocks and the minor league affiliates. Woo! Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for more content.